this party started, I think I have taken enough time to become quite comfortable with, well, actually, I'm not quite comfortable because when I'm experiencing every vibration that's manifesting within this this world, and tuning into and being attuned to so much of the ridiculous insanity emerging and just flying through the skies. And interestingly, many of the ignorance, the demons who are doing such asinine stuff, are not even disguising themselves. They are front and center. Individuals were reminding me, well, Mother June, you were predicting and talking about that they would be storming the Bastille, and I was using that analogy as it pertains to what the people in Paris did when they went after Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, and the lines were, let them eat cake. Well, they didn't eat cake anymore because their heads were sliced from their necks by the guillotine. For example, these individuals who stormed the capital of the United States, January 6th, hardly anything has been done to those individuals. And interestingly, so much of it was filmed. And you could see people's faces, and so that means somebody somewhere knows who these humans are, and their despicable actions, and the things that they did. I mean, you know, urinating, defecating, and putting that mess on the walls and on the Congress people, senators' desks and everything. I mean, stealing. What if they were black? We know they would have never gotten to the steps, would have never gotten through the door which was opened for them. That would not have happened. And the majority of those individuals in that multitude would have been caught, snatched up, and if it wasn't those who were there, they just gonna grab black folk off the street, grab them out of their cars, go to their homes or somebody's house and grab them some Negroes, and make sure that they got sent away. So we're living in some tumultuous times, and I'm not really immune from what's happening, from what is going to happen, and what has happened. It's as pertinent and imminent as my beautiful brown skin. So experiencing so much of what individuals are doing, what they have given themselves permission to do, as well as what they are permitted to do by individuals sitting in Congress and sitting in Senate seats and on court benches, whoever they are, and as it pertains to my people, black people, whom I'm so attached and committed to, had it been them, they'd be dead. We may as well say. And And it's so interesting because the attachment, the dedication, the commitment that I have was birthed into my soul. And even when I have attempted so many years ago to get away from it, to ignore it, to not be so driven by it, it's in the palm of my hands. It's my fingertips. It's the sole of my feet. It's in my knees. It's in the inner ear, the tip of my nose, my eyelashes, my spine, my brain. There is no alternative to this spiritual attachment that breathes itself as I. And when I had said, I don't want to do it, well, Most High, Divine, Loving Holy Spirit, that divine aliveness which breathes itself, being June, directed, you can't leave this earth. You can't leave this planet until you do what we birthed you to do. So now I'm quite comfortable, even though I experience yet so much discomfort. And as I say, I love my people. However, I also love people. And I definitely love babies. So I knew that moments were arising as well as arriving, like a knock. June, you have to do this. June, you have to do that. I don't want to do it. I wouldn't say I'm not going to do it, because that would be useless, and it would also be very and exceptionally disrespectful. So I'm here talking, and it's interesting also that individuals who know, yes, I was Michael Jackson's spiritual advisor, the greatest entertainer, the greatest performer on the planet, called me, like so many other humans do. And it was just like we had been together forever, because I hadn't seen him and his brothers since the mid-70s. And when he called, I was ready. And I'm not saying this as an aside, but individuals question, you were Michael's spiritual advisor, my God. And in these days and times of this social media and influencers and everything, and you only got 2 people following you. You only got 150 people following you. You don't have millions and multi-thousands. Like, no, because I'm not out there promoting and well, not tap dancing, but I'm not out here that way. Because when I say I, quote, attempted and or tried, unquote, to run from this duty, from this responsibility, I have. And so I haven't made good use of social media. In some ways, it can become tiring. It can become very debilitating. And I have been hospitalized a number of times as a result of the tension and the way the energy works on my body, drains me. So I have to rest. And it has been very, very hard sometimes, a lot of times. So I have people telling me, there are people all on YouTube and they're talking about, they're giving predictions and they're doing this. And Mother June, Reverend June, MJ, interestingly, the initials MJ, you could be doing that. You have a whole lot of people. And I said, I'm certain many of those humans have individuals who do the work for them. They're not sitting there tweeting all day, doing their Instagram 27 days a week. Let me just not complain about that. Because, in other words, at this time in life, Mother is getting started. I'm gonna learn how to work this stuff, work YouTube, and so I can deliver the message, which has to be done as I was birthed to do it. So I'm asking, even here and now, as so many people do, I'm learning how to do it. Like my YouTube presentations and subscribe, because definitely I would be exceptionally grateful. So this moment here, dealing with, God, there's so much going on. I think about the individuals that I'm associated with, individuals who are renowned, and as my child says, you're the most renowned person, or renowned unknown person, because I've been in the back, in the behind the curtains and the doors of individuals who are truly upfront and on mountaintops and in presidential seats in the people's house. Mother has been there in VP seats and everything. They call, what do you see? I want to get my chapter from the Book of Life. Can you schedule me and can you pencil me in? And most times, yeah, I do, because I've been doing this for 1,000 years, you might as well say. And I have watched everything manifest. And it would be very frustrating also when I'm so far ahead of time, as Maurice White, the founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, would tell me, June, you don't see like other people see. You're not like us. And that's true, because everybody's an individual, but everybody don't have what I have. That Sylvia Brown, that mean woman, so interesting how people can be so mean, but she was mean. We did 2 shows together. She was mean on both of them, and just wrong. I never vetted people, VETTED. I never asked anybody in the audience what did they want to know before the show started to tape. I would watch these people move around and talk to individuals in the audience and, find out stuff about them. Well, I need to find out stuff about them because I didn't have to do that. When I'm seated where I'm seated, when it's my time, then Mother is just going to open her mouth and speak and tell them what it is not, what it's going to be, what it has been, what must be. And of course, I would always be right. I remember the 31st of October, 1985, a very auspicious date. I was guest on Phil Donahue's show. Phil was the man. He had the show. He was all that, and as they say, a bag of chips and some M&Ms before Oprah Winfrey. I've got a story about her too, actually a few stories. But anyway, Phil came to LA, Burbank, as a lot of the talk show individuals would do. They would come to Los Angeles and tape some shows live. I was invited by a young sister, producer from D.C. All these things are being tied in, and I met her when I was in D.C., and they had an event for me. And during that time, I told her that she was going to leave the show she was producing in D.C. and go to New York and do a big show, produce for a big show. He was not planning on leaving to do anybody's shows. She liked where she was in D.C., but she was called by the Donahue show, and she went. So when they came to do the show in Burbank, he invited me, and I went, and I was seated in the audience, and just like enjoying Phil doing his thing. And then he walked over to me and gave me his cards, his 3x5 cards. He said, "Would you hold these for me?" I said, "Well, of course I will." And he went and continued to do what he's doing, turned and came back. He said, "You got my cards?" I said, "Yes, I do." And he went back and did what he does. And during the big break, I just stood in the midst of all those 100 and some people. And I said, "I'm doing the Phil Donahue show." And I sat. Well, after the show was over, he came. He said, "Do you have my cards?" I said, "Yes, I do. Here they are." He said, "Thank you for keeping them for me." I said, "Oh, you're welcome." And it was maybe a couple months that I was called. And Janet, the producer, who had left D.C., went to produce for Phil Donahue. She said, "June, please don't say you can't do it. Please say you can do it. Phil has never, ever done a show with psychics before, and you've got to do it." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And left L.A. to do the show on the 31st of October, 1985. And as I said, I will never, ever forget that date, because my dearest friend was told, I told her that she was going to get pregnant and have a baby boy. And, well, Cheryl was in labor and didn't go to birth my godson until she saw me on Donahue. Now, when I told her that she was going to get pregnant and have a baby boy, she hadn't even met his father yet. But when she did meet his father, Chad is here. And that was auspicious. And I was seated on that stage at the time she was in labor, and they had some other guests. They were all white, and I say that purposefully, for white people, and June. So I was just being quiet and watching what they were doing, and they were all wrong. They had a mentalist. He was also wrong. And he had told me when we were in the limo, he said, "Well, you're psychic, and probably, you a lot of psychics are housewives and everything, and they are, like simplistic individuals, simplistic women. And I said, I don't know. I was looking around and said, well, who are you talking to? I said, I'm not a housewife. I'm definitely not simplistic. And he was a, quote, mentalist, unquote. So if he had anything mental going on, he should have known, but of course he didn't. And so then when we got there and we were seated on stage and everything, and he looks at me, he said, because when I do what I'm doing, would you hold my cards for me? I said, your cards? Yeah, we did. You hold my cards, and then so I can do what I'm going to do with the audience. I said, I don't think so. So I sat and I watched these people talk to individuals in the audience, and everybody was wrong. So when it came time for me, because they figured, well, I hadn't said anything, and maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was just going to be sitting there or whatever. Phil asked me, he said, well, Junie, would you like to do something? Because the audience by that time was tired and bored, and it was like, oh, God. And it was the worst thing that I guess Phil could have said he had ever done, because he said he would never, ever do shows with psychics or anything like that. And then he did this show, and here you got these 4 people who were just wrong, just dull and whatever. And I said, okay. So there was a young woman in the audience, and I pointed to her, which meant he had to leave from the right side of the studio, of the audience, and walk over to the left. And I said, that's her right there. So he went over to her and had the mic, and I spoke to her. Of course, I didn't know her name or anything about her, I didn't know her name. And I said, you just got your master's degree. I said, now you're going for your PhD. I said, but you got 2 masters. And she said, you're right. And so then when I said, you're going for another one, she said, of course, that I was right. And then I congratulated her, because I think I said, and you're engaged and getting ready, just got engaged, and you're going to be getting married. And just like having a regular conversation, she said, oh, yeah, you're right. And he said, well, and Phil said, okay, well, we wish you well. And so after the show was over and the audience clapped and everything, it was like, oh my God, finally somebody got something right, and didn't ask any questions or anything, just opened their mouth and spoke. Like, well, baby, that's the way mother does it, And so after everything was finished and done, we're backstage, and Phil came up to me. He said, Junie, would you do me the honor of taking a photo with me? I said, of course I would. And I said, you know one thing? When you came to Burbank, I was in the audience. I said, and you handed me your cards. He said, you were in Burbank, and I said, yeah. I said, and you walked up to me and you gave me your cards. I said, and you walked up to me and said, you got my cards? I said, do you remember that? He said, I sure do. I said, that, and I stood in the audience. I said, during the big break, I said, I stood up and I said, I'm doing the Phil Donahue show. He said, well, you were absolutely correct. And here you are. I said, that's right, my brother. Here I am. And he's the nicest person. That was a very special time. I'm saying this because I it's like, people need to have introductions. I mean, I've got videos on YouTube here. It's my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. As I said, like and subscribe. But anyway, when I was invited to Baltimore, the show that Oprah Winfrey had just left the week before to move to Chicago to do her show in Chicago. Well, they read about me in Essence magazine and called and asked if I would come to Baltimore. And I said, of course I will. So I went to Baltimore and had a good time reading for the people in the audience and everything. And then I told them that the former host would take over the world. And the executive producer, oh my God, what's her name? What was her name? Maybe it'll come to me later. But she wanted me to meet their other producer, and they said, well, Oprah Winfrey just left, and she's doing a show in Chicago, and you must do her show. So we want to introduce you to, I'm going to refer you to Christine Tardio and Deborah DeMaio. They are her producers. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'll tell you one thing. I said, whoever she is, she's going to take over the world. I said, she's going to be really, 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 really big. And they said, well, from your mouth to God's ears. I said, Most High's already told me. I said, I don't know her. Of course, you know, I don't live in Baltimore, so I've never met her or anything. I said, but she's going to take over the world. She's going to be the biggest thing on TV. And so Oprah did become that. The interesting thing is, when I did go to Chicago, I went to Chicago actually in 1984. Yeah, when Reverend Jesse Jackson was up for president, and the Nation of Islam was his security and everything. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and all that. And I had told Reverend Jackson that he would be the first black man to run for the president of the United States. And so he did become that. And they really didn't take it seriously until they saw the numbers of the people that were gathering in like conglomeration of black folk all over this planet. And Jesse Jackson. And so when they saw that it was a real deal, the Fruit of Islam still stuck with him, but he then got the security for the United States that, you know, guards people that are and protects people when they're running for the president and after they become president and everything. So I was in Chicago for Savior's Day, February 1984. That was when I was also invited to go to Libya to sing for the Honorable Minister Muammar Gaddafi. His representatives heard me when I sang at the Robert E. Johnson Auditorium, 17,000 people in that auditorium for that event. But anyway, I called Oprah's producers, and they said they would get back to me, but of course they didn't know me, so, you know, it took them forever to get back. And I had an opportunity later I never met Oprah during that time, but I did speak to her when she came to Los Angeles for The Color Purple, the movie The Color Purple. She played Sophia in that movie. Harpo. Anyway, she played Harpo's wife in that movie, and I said, this woman is in Los Angeles. I must find her. Those spirits are called Bel Air Hotel. So I called Bel Air Hotel and I asked for Oprah Winfrey, and they said, "Oh, okay," and put me on to her line. She answered. So I introduced myself, mentioned names of individuals whom she knows, told her that I had done her former show in Baltimore, and then I told them that she would take over the world. Well, of course, she had just gotten started in Chicago. And I said, "You'll take over the world," and also mentioned to her that she had an opportunity to get married, but she probably wouldn't because she wasn't interested in being married. So she listened to that. And I said, I'd spoken to Christine Tardio and Deborah DeMaio, these two women who, after a hot minute, they left the show. But anyway, when I mentioned their names, so she knew that I was a legitimate person, including with the names that I mentioned to her. And, telling her, as I said, that she would be the biggest thing on TV, taking over the world. And she told me, she said, well, I said I would never have any more psychics on my show as long as I'm black. I said, well, you're going to be black for the rest of your life. So that means we're going to find another way for me to do your show then, doesn't it? She was quiet. And I was serious. But she never invited me to do her show. But so many people whom I do the read for, they've all done her show. So I said, well, I've done her show. Young brother that I also read for, that anytime he would come from Chicago, he would come to me and then do whatever he had to do because he was a producer. Morris Butch Stewart. So it's, you have those like round, intermittent relationships and associations. And so I never did her show. But I'm going to skip ahead with this because I'm just, in a way, just name dropping, but I'm doing that so individuals will be able to research if they want to, or have an opportunity to see the legitimate work that I do, and that the works that I do are absolutely phenomenal, and as some people feel, extraordinary. Very interesting. Iyanla Vanzant of Iyanla Fixed My Life. Lord, I've been carrying the burden of that mean woman for such a long time, so many years. And one of her chapters, she was told that she would be doing the Oprah show. Interestingly, I had done two events back to back. Friday night in her inner city, in the Inner Visions Center in Silver Spring, Maryland. I was invited to do a book signing and to speak to the individuals who would come. Well, individuals were lined that Friday, men, women, and they could, I think some children were there because I love children. So they all came, and her center that evening was just packed. And I think somebody said that the fire department came, or they called the fire department because there were so many people out. It was over its capacity, whatever that was. But we had a wonderful time. Mother spoke, signed her book, men, women, everybody was having a good time. And matter of fact, her daughter, beloved daughter, Jamia, dear child, she was there also. So the next day it was for women only. And it was filled with women, with these beautiful sisters. And we had a good time. And when I finished my presentation, there was this wonderful song that was played, which I started playing every time I would go someplace to speak, B.B. Winans' Thank You. So everybody was dancing and having a good time. And I was standing over to the side, relaxing in a very significant place of sort of like a meditative state. And I was standing with my friend who was a provost at George Mason University, also a university where I've spoken, Howard University, Kent State, Akron University. Meryl and I was standing there, and Iyanla came in, and she was in a very huff, very ragged energy, and she walked past and then turned and was facing Meryl and I, and someone had given her a beautiful garment, a dress or a robe which was in a plastic covering like you get in dry cleaners, and she had some food bags in her hand, like takeout, and cup with drinks. And she stood there and she said, I don't like these. She said, no, I don't like anything like this. She was in a very deep huff. And then she stood for a hot minute, and she looked at me, and it's like I felt this horrifying energy coming from her. And Meryl and I were still talking, and next thing you know, she stomped over, and with her trash, she punched me in my stomach, in my abdomen, and she held. I don't know what had come over her. Like she was in some kind of trance or something, and she punched me and held that with the stuff, the takeout stuff, and held it in my stomach area. In my stomach, not my stomach area. She had me right in abdominal area, solar plexus. And Meryl looked at her, and then she looked at me. She said, "Let me get you out of here. Let me find some place to take this trash." She moved Iyanla's hand and took the trash that was in her hands and put it in a trash basket or container. And we walked out. I was in, it was like I had been moved out of my body in out of body. I was, because I wasn't not allowed to ingest that horrifying action that she had just made. But it was so filled with hatefulness. And as Meryl was walking me out, I saw Jamia seated in an entrance way, and she looked at me. I looked at her, and Meryl just took me out. I said, "I never ever want to come to this place again. I don't ever want to come to this place again." And what was really interesting, that was a Saturday, and the coming Monday, Iyanla had her appointment to get her chapter from the Book of Life. I had to give her the sacred word from the Book of Life. And she was coming to the home where I was staying in D.C. And I was in a place of prayer, and I was asking Most High, I said, "How can I read for that woman after what she did?" They said, "Read for her anyway, to show her that our word, our work, still works." She came, and someone was leaving, and she came, and I looked at her, and I'm grateful that the peacefulness and the calm surrounded me and moved over me, above, below. And I don't remember whether I said, "Hi, how you doing?" or anything like that, but it was just the regular June readying to do the work that she does. And we went into the dining area, and she sat at the table. I sat at the head of the table, and she sat right aside. And I always record everybody's information. So she had her cassette, and I took the wrapping off, and I balled it and put it on the side, just in place on the table. And I began the prayer and affirmation and everything. And while I was doing that, Most High said, "Move that trash." So I opened my eyes, and I said, "I have to move this trash." And the wrapping on a cassette is very small, but in the universe, it was as big as a mountain. And so I took it, put it in the trash, and came and sat to begin. And she opened her eyes, and she said, "Don't stop writing. We need you." And I continued and did her information. And in that information, she was told that she would be doing the Oprah Winfrey show. And she would have her place on the Oprah Winfrey show. And when I finished, and she said, "You said I'm going to do Oprah? I'm going to do Oprah?" I said, "Well, that's what they said." I said, "They always manifest their word. You'll do the Oprah show. And then it'll become like your show." Well, it wasn't long after that she was called to do the Oprah show. And she would do that show every Tuesday. And people would call me from across the U.S. And they would say, "June, you're on Oprah today." Because I never watched it. And what they were referencing is that Iyanla would be speaking some of the words from my book, my beautiful, beauty-filled book, Spirit Speaks to Sisters. And she would utilize phrasing and everything from my book. And I still continued to read for her. And then she never ever spoke about what she did. I never spoke to her about what she did. And then in May of 2000, I was in DC again. And so people wanted to get their appointments. And she wanted her appointment. And interestingly, I was in my house, in my place, and I heard Iyanla no longer has the Oprah Winfrey show. Oprah had actually given her every Tuesday by herself, because in the beginning it was she and Oprah talking and all that stuff, and then Oprah just gave her the stage. So it became like the advent of what would become Iyanla Fix My Life. Well, Spirit said Iyanla no longer has Oprah. Well, she came to get her information. And I'm saying all this because I would say it if she was standing in front of me, or if she was standing in front of Jesus and 12 other white men. She came and she told me that they had called and told her that she no longer had Oprah. They didn't need her to come in on a Tuesday. I guess they called her on a Tuesday and said, "We don't need you to come in." So there it was gone. But she got her information anyway, and then invited me to her Mother's Day brunch in her inner city spiritual center. And I was staying with a very dear friend, and I said, "I can't go to that place after what she did to me." She said, "No, you should go." The Honorable Dr. Julianne Malveaux, phenomenal woman, economist, was a former president of Spelman University, Spelman College. She said, "No, go." It's like, oh my God. So I just gave thanks to Most High for strength and everything. And I went. I'm seated at the table for the brunch, the luncheon, She got up and she spoke some lines flying off her tongue, exactly like her in my book. And I said, wow. But the interesting thing is, while seated at the table, where the luncheon was, the food and all that, I had my camera there. Her executive assistant walked over to where I was seated, picked up my camera, I said, this is my camera. And I'm like, oh my God, are these people insane? And I said, no, this is my camera. I mean, camera right next to my plate where my fork and spoon and knife are and where my food is. And she picked it up. She said, no, it's mine. And it was the grace of God that kept me very calm. So I didn't get up and knock that hussy over the head with a chair. They said, that's okay. Okay, all right. So then after the event, everybody went upstairs to, I guess, her private area, whatever, and the wonderful singer, Howard Hewitt, was there. And so she was going to introduce me to Howard. I said, and Howard said, I know June. She used to live right down the street from where we live. We didn't live far from one another. Her sisters used to babysit for my sisters, brothers and sisters. Like, oh my goodness, who doesn't this woman know? And somebody snapped a picture of me, and I have that because it was like a very enlightening yet a kind of exasperating time in that inner city, her inner city spiritual center, Inner Visions spiritual center. And all I knew was I need to get out of here because the energy was jagged. It was raging, and that woman had taken my camera. So I got back to Julianne's house. And I told her what happened. And it was like negativity was attempting and or trying to invade my sacred physical body temple. And Holy Spirit was not allowing that to happen. And after doing all my time in D.C., where I love D.C., Jamia, Iyanla's beautiful child, Jamia called and she said, do not take a taxi, do not ask anybody to come and take you to the airport. I'm taking you to the airport. Now, Julianne Vanzant was something for your behind. She didn't take to too many people, didn't give a lot of people the time of day, but when she calls, she says, I'm taking you to the airport. And so she came, and we were riding and talking. It was very pleasant. And then I told her, I said, is it okay if I tell you something? She said, oh, tell me, yeah. And so I told her what that woman did. I said, she's a very covetous woman. Her attitude is very bad, very negative. And she said, yes, you're right. I said, and if she could, she would try to be your mother, be like Iyanla. She said, yeah, you're right. I said, but that's okay. I said, because she's going to pay for what she did. And so we just had our good time laughing and everything. And I was like, wow, I have these precious moments with Jamia. And when I arrived home in LA, it's just like I've been waiting years to get this off me. I got to tell this story, this saga. So I got home and Spirit said, call the woman and tell her you want your camera. So I called Inner Visions and I left a message. There was no call back. So 2 days, Spirit said, call, tell her you want your camera, you want your pictures. So I called and I left a message. She never called back. So they said, call, maybe a couple of days after, call and tell her Oh no, I called Iyanla, tell her. So I called Iyanla, and I told her, I said, your executive assistant took my camera. I said, but I want to tell you something. And I'm saying this now because I'm staying in the context of truth and honesty. And I told her, I said, I'm a child of Ilegwa and Yemanya. That woman is going to lose everything she's got because she never should have done it. She never should have taken my camera. That was that. So, Holy Spirit said, call that woman and tell her. And I called her, left the message. I said, you've got my camera. You've got my pictures from that camera. I'm a child of Ilegwa and Yemaya. You never should have done it. You're going to lose everything you've got. And I hung up. It wasn't a hot minute. Ding, 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 ding. Oh my God, Reverend Jim, do you know that camera, it was your camera, and I've got your pictures and everything. I'm going to send everything to you. I said, fine, click. And so, overnight mail, everything came. Wasn't too long after that, whatever the time, length of time it was. And Iyanla called, girlfriend, and we are not girlfriends. We never had a conversation like that. Girlfriend, whatever the woman's name is. She has lost everything. Everything, her car, where she lived, her insurance, everything gone. I said, well, she never should have done it. It mattered not to me because she never should have done it. And so I got my pictures and all of that. This has allowed the privilege of getting rid of that weight, that burden, that even if it was the size of a grain of sand, which is smaller than a grain of mustard seed, I carried it for so very long. And in 2000, I think it was 2010, Iyanla came to Los Angeles for an event for women, and women were being acknowledged and given their props, and by a women's organization created by this woman, Barbara Perkins. So I was invited by Honorable Marva Smith Battle Bay, who was the president of the 100 Black Women. And she invited me as her guest to come. Well, I went, and there was Iyanla because she was getting her award, and other women were getting their awards and their acknowledgments and everything. And it was very uncomfortable, really. And Spirit told me, don't stop to say anything or we will blow everything in this room. And I knew what they meant, because that meant mirrors, chandeliers, glasses on tables. Everything would start blowing up and you would hear explosions. And it was like, okay, I'm going over here and be seated. And I did. But that's also when they told me, you better tell her. She was seated at that time with this woman, Jewel Diamond Taylor, who had a tremendous following for the work that she was doing. So these two women were seated together. Matter of fact, one time it was Jewel Diamond Taylor who brought Iyanla to my place to get another reading, as you know, because I read for her all the time. But I didn't let Jewel Diamond Taylor in my place. No, because she was not kind to me. But anyway, there's a lot of, it's so interesting how Black women can be unkind and nasty to other Black women. So Spirit said, you better tell her. Well, opportunity came, and she had written her new book and published by Tavis Smiley publishing company, and they were having a big book signing at the African American Museum of Art. So I went, but I was determined I'm not going by myself. My godson, his wife, their son, another friend who was a photographer, and another young woman. They all went because I was not going by myself. I had already written Iyanla a letter about the trash, and it had been sent to her quite some time ago. So when I got there, it was like, okay, it was jam-packed because people want her books, you know. So people were lying to get her books, and it was like, I was very patient. I'm going to be very obedient and adhere to the divine spiritual directives that Most High and Holy Spirit give to June. So when there was a moment for a break, I went over to her, and I had my protective protection with me, and I stood and waited until the last person at that time had gotten her book signing until the break was over and they'd start again. And so when she saw me, I said, I wanted to talk to you. Out of her mouth were, is it about the trash? Because that was what, when I sent her the letter, it was titled The Trash. And I said, yes, it is. I said, I never heard from you. No, I sent you a letter. I said, well, I never got it. Would you resend it? So all of you who are listening, wherever you are on the planet, this planet which spins, as we say, in universe without human compulsion or permission, I have yet to get her alleged letter that she had previously sent. The letter she previously sent, she never resent it. And so I have not seen nor spoken to her even after beloved Jamia died. Yes, I did speak to her. I'd been hospitalized, and I had a message from Jamia for her mother. And the message from her beloved daughter, Julianne Vanzant, was for Iyanla, and to tell Iyanla not to take Jamia's child, her daughter, Iyamoja, to the cemetery on the anniversary of Jamia's death, which was Christmas Day, the 25th. And she did not want her daughter to be taken to the cemetery. So I'm in the hospital, on my hospital bed, and I called Iyanla and I told her what the message was from her daughter, who is living eternally. I gave her the exact words and some other directives that Jamia wanted to honor her memory, to honor Jamia's memory, and she wanted Iyanla to do this. So I gave it to her, and that was it. Well, I heard later that Iyanla told people that I had called her and told her that Jamia said not to take her daughter, who is Iyanla's granddaughter, not to take her to the cemetery. And she said she was going to do it anyway. Well, as spirit and spirit of nature, Mother Nature, had it, they said they had one of the worst one of the most horrific storms they had ever had in the city of Washington, D.C. So she couldn't take the child to the cemetery. So I, as far as I remember, have not spoken to her since then. And I'm so glad that I have gotten these words out. I don't know how long this is, but I'm grateful. I am so grateful that this heavy burden, the size of a grain of sand, but it's like Mount Kilimanjaro on my head, and now it's no longer there. And I really don't have a sense of caring how people will feel about this. I don't care. I don't care how Iyanla would feel about it, because she knows it's true. The letter that I sent her, I think I must have CC'd 7 women, because, you know, Black women are always talking about how we have to support one another and love one another. So I sent it to individuals that I was directed to send it. One woman replied in such a nasty, horrendous manner. Barbara Perkins. I'm saying the names. Telling me she's particular about who she invites to her parties. And it was like, well, Miss Thing, honey, that's fine. But I just wanted women accessible who have integrity. I thought had integrity. 3 women did reply very generously and kind, understanding, supportive, because I knew that I had to copy these women, CC these women, in case Iyanla would say she never got it. And it's like, well, here's 7 other women who did get it. Barbara Perkins, nasty, vehemently nasty. She got it. Other women got it. 3 replied, as I said, very generously and kind, and said it should not have happened, and they would never ever do anything like that, and they hope that everything becomes rightful. Well, and with all her trillions of followers, I said, Iyanla need to fix her life. And since I'm saying that, at this moment here and now, present, which is 1st of November 2021. I haven't done the numbers to see what the numerical value is, but I just know that it's right, that it's rightful, and that it is an honorable exercise in integrity and spiritual works. And I know whose child I am, and all I'm saying, I never got Iyanla's letter that she allegedly wrote and sent to me, and never resent it. And I'm just saying she never should have done it. So that's that. And I have so much work to do, and yet doing it all the time. And I have to say that I'm right now on my channel, Reverent Juliette Gatlin, who has been acknowledged and mentioned as the greatest oracle on the planet. And the fact is, it is true. And even as my child says, the most renowned unknown person. But I believe, as Most High, thank you, Lord, is telling me right now that this had to be done. They've moved the mountain. And, there's a song, Lord, don't move that mountain. Give me strength to climb it. Please don't move that stumbling block. Lead me all around it. Lord, don't you move that mountain. Give me strength to climb it. Please don't move that stumbling block. Lead me all around it. Well, it's crumpled. And she never should have done it. I'm done. Well, with this one. And so it is. So it is Monday, 1st November 2021. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking my channel. As the Terminator said, this situation and circumstance is finished. I'll be back.